When a young pianist is pulled off stage without warning, a single act of injustice sparks a powerful movement for courage, truth, and change led by the very girl they tried to silence. It was a bright morning, and the air felt special, almost like something magical was going to happen. Maya Hernandez woke up early, much earlier than usual. She had been waiting for this day for months. It was the school's annual talent show one. Of the biggest events of the year-end, Maya had been chosen to play the piano. Not just any song either. She had practiced a beautiful, emotional piece that she had learned with her grandmother, used to play it for her before she passed away. Maya lived in a small neighborhood with her parents and younger brother. Father worked long hours at a hardware store, and her mother was a nurse who sometimes had night shifts. Money wasn't easy to come by, but her parents always made sure Maya could take piano lessons. They had found her an old second-hand keyboard and signed her up for free online tutorials. That's how it all started. And now, 2 years later, Maya could play full songs with passion and soul. Even though she had never owned a real piano, she put on her dress a soft lavender color, with small flowers printed on the edge. Her mom braided her hair and pinned a small butterfly clip in the back. Maya looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. Today she felt like she mattered. Today was her day. When she reached the school, the auditorium was already filling with people. Parents, students, teachers, and even a few community members sat down in the red-cushioned chairs. The school had never felt so alive. Everyone was laughing, clapping, and talking. The air buzzed with energy. Backstage, students stood in nervous clusters. Some were stretching, others were singing quietly to warm up their voices. Maya held her music sheet close to her chest, although she didn't really need it. She had memorized every note. Mr. Jenkins, the music teacher, came over to check on the performers. He gave Maya a quick thumbs up and whispered, "You've got this." She smiled, though her stomach danced with butterflies. Suddenly a voice echoed through the backstage hallway. "Line up, everyone, we're about to start." It was Mr. Thompson, the school's vice principal. He was tall, always wore the same brown suit, and had a voice that sounded like he was always angry even when he wasn't. Maya didn't like him much. He rarely smiled and always seemed to treat her differently than some of the other students. Still, today was not about him. The show began with a group dance, followed by a comedy act. People clapped and laughed. Maya peeked through the curtain and saw her parents sitting in the third row. Her mom waved when their eyes met. Maya felt her heart swell with pride. She was going to make them proud. Maya was performer number 5. She stood quietly by the side of the stage, waiting for her turn, holding her breath as the 4th act finished. The host, a cheerful 8th grader with a microphone too big for her hand, called out, "Next up, please welcome Maya Hernandez." To the stage, the spotlight dimmed for a moment. The audience grew quiet. It was her time. But just as Maya took one step toward the piano, a firm hand grabbed her shoulder. She turned around, startled. It was Mr. Thompson. "Not now," he said in a low voice. Maya blinked. "But I'm next." "There's been a change," he muttered. "Running behind schedule. We'll skip this one." Maya's eyes widened. "Skip? What?" "Come with me," he said, and started walking away, expecting her to follow. She stood frozen for a second, confused and hurt. What was going on? This didn't make sense. Her name had just been announced. People were waiting. Her parents were watching. But Mr. Thompson didn't care. He walked back toward the hallway, and after a few seconds, Maya followed slowly. Unsure, as she walked past the heavy curtain, she could hear the silence in the auditorium. The host hesitated, clearly confused, then smiled nervously and moved. "On. Okay, next up, we have the drama club." Maya stood in the hallway outside the backstage area, looking down at her dress and sheet music. Her hands trembled. She wanted to cry, but her pride wouldn't let her. Mr. Thompson said nothing, only told her to return to her seat in the audience. She walked back through the auditorium doors quietly. Her parents looked at her, confused. "What happened?" her mother asked in a whisper. Maya didn't answer. Her throat felt dry. She sat down and stared ahead, trying not to let the tears fall. Her brother reached over and held her hand. On the stage, other performers continued. But Maya didn't hear the music or the applause. All she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat and the heavy question in her mind. Why? Why had he stopped her? After the show ended, several parents and students noticed something was off. Whispers spread across the crowd. A few people said it was odd that Maya didn't perform, especially since her name was called. Others said it was probably a mistake. But some weren't convinced. They had seen the way Mr. Thompson looked at her cold, uninterested, dismissive. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened either. One parent, a woman named Mrs. Patel, who had known Maya since kindergarten, walked over to her and asked, "Did something happen backstage?" Maya just nodded slightly and said, "Mr. Thompson told me not to go." Her voice cracked at the end. Mrs. Patel looked stunned. "That's not right," she said. "That's not okay." Another parent came by, then a teacher, then a student. One by one, they all asked the same question, and each time, Maya gave the same quiet answer. The crowd began to murmur. What? Should have been a celebration was turning into something else, something uncomfortable. And all the while, Mr. Thompson stayed in the corner, talking to another staff member, avoiding eye contact with Maya or her parents. The rest of the day passed in a strange blur. Maya went home and sat quietly in her room. She didn't touch the piano. She didn't eat much. Her mom tried to comfort her, but Maya didn't know how to explain the pain. It wasn't just that she missed her chance to perform it was that someone had taken it away from her. And for no good reason. At school the next day, some students whispered in the hallways. A few told Maya they were sorry. One girl even said he wouldn't have done that if you were one of the popular kids. Maya shrugged, but deep down she agreed. Later that week, her music teacher, Mr. Jenkins, came to talk to her privately. He looked frustrated. "I don't understand what happened either," he said. "Your name was on the list. Your slot was confirmed. I didn't even know until I saw you sitting in the crowd." Maya finally asked, "Do you think it's because of me?" Mr. Jenkins hesitated. "I think it's something we need to look into," he replied carefully. "And I don't think it's fair. That's for sure." Something had shifted. People were starting to ask questions. And though Maya didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of what would turn into something much bigger. What should have been a beautiful day, celebration of talent and dreams, had been turned into a moment of confusion, silence, and invisible pain. But sometimes even pain can light a fire. And in this case, Maya's silence would soon echo louder than anyone expected. The next morning at school felt different. The halls were filled with voices, as usual, but the laughter sounded weaker, the chatter more careful. Word had started to spread about what happened during the talent show. Students who hadn't even attended were asking each other, "Did you hear about Maya? Why didn't she play?" Some were guessing it was a mistake, some blamed the schedule, but others, especially those who knew Maya well. I felt like it wasn't a mistake at all, Maya walked through the hallway quietly, her backpack feeling heavier than usual. Every step felt like it took extra effort. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was something deeper, like a bruise under the skin that no one could see. She avoided eye contact, but even then, she could feel people looking at her. A few kids smiled. In support, one classmate whispered that wasn't fair. Maya gave a tiny nod, but didn't say anything. She still wasn't ready to talk about it. When she got to her homeroom, saw Mr. Thompson standing near the teacher's desk, talking to Ms. Lopez. Their conversation stopped as soon as Maya entered. For a split second, Mr. Thompson looked. At hers, a glance, but it was enough. Cold, distant, like he didn't recognize her at all. Then he turned away and walked out. The day passed slowly. Teachers acted normal. Lessons continued. But in the background, something had started to shift. The moment people began questioning what happened, the silence broke open. At lunchtime, Maya sat with her usual group of friends. They didn't ask her anything at first, just shared snacks like they always did. But halfway through lunch, her best friend Nita leaned forward and said, "Maya, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. But why didn't you perform?" Maya put her sandwich down. She looked at the table for a moment, thinking of how to explain it without crying. "Mr. Thompson stopped me," she said finally. "He said there was a change in schedule. But no. One else got skipped. The table went quiet. He just pulled you off the stage," asked a boy named Kareem. She nodded. "Why would he do that?" Nita asked, her eyebrows furrowed. "I don't know," Maya replied. But deep inside, she had a guess. It wasn't the first time she'd felt like she was being treated differently. She just never thought it would be so public, so cruel. That afternoon, after school ended, Maya's parents showed up at the front office. They had called earlier to speak to the principal, Mrs. Green, but she was out for the day. So they waited for Mr. Thompson instead. When he came out of his office, he looked surprised to see them. "We want to talk about what happened to our daughter during the talent show," Maya's father said, trying to keep his voice calm. Mr. Thompson gave a polite smile, the kind people wear when they want to avoid blame. "Of course. I was just going to write you an email," he lied. Maya's mother folded her arms. Why was Maya stopped from performing? Her name was called. She was ready. "There was a scheduling issue," Mr. Thompson said. "We had too many acts. Someone had to be cut. I made a decision in the moment." "Did you inform the music teacher?" her father asked. "No, but it was a quick call," he answered. "Why Maya?" her mother pressed. Mr. Thompson's smile faltered for a second. Then he straightened up and replied, "It wasn't personal. It was about timing. Nothing more." But they could all feel it. Something in his voice didn't sound honest. His words were too clean, too practiced. Maya's parents exchanged a glance. They weren't going to argue in the hallway. They also weren't going to let this go. That evening, Maya's father wrote a letter to the school board, explained everything that had happened. Didn't shout, didn't accuse anyone directly, but he asked clear questions. Why wasn't Maya allowed to perform? Why was no one else removed? Why wasn't the teacher informed? Why did it happen to the only Latina girl in the entire performance lineup? Waited the next day, something unexpected happened. A teacher one Maya didn't know well stopped her in the hallway. Her name was Ms. Reynolds. She leaned down and whispered, "I'm really sorry about what happened. I saw it. I didn't agree with it. And you didn't deserve that." Maya didn't know what to say. She just nodded, stunned that someone had come forward. Later that week, her music teacher, Mr. Jenkins, came back with more news. He had checked the printed schedule, the same one given to all staff, and Maya's name was clearly there. She had a 5-minute slot listed at number 5. He showed the paper to her parents during a meeting after school. "So," Mr. Jenkins said, his voice calm but firm, "it wasn't a mistake, and it wasn't a time issue. The schedule was followed until Maya. Then it changed." Her parents took the paper quietly, as the evidence made the truth harder to deny. The school board responded to the email a day later. They thanked Maya's father for writing and promised to investigate. It was a small step, but it was something. The principal, Mrs. Green, also scheduled a meeting with Maya's family. In that meeting, she apologized for the confusion, but said she had not been informed about Mr. Thompson's actions. "I understand your frustration," she said. "We're taking this seriously." Maya sat beside her parents during the meeting, quietly listening. She didn't speak much, but her silence spoke louder than anything else. Her eyes said everything: pain, confusion, hurt, and a deep sense of betrayal. Outside the school walls, something else was beginning to happen. A parent who had been at the event posted about it on social media. She didn't name Maya directly, but wrote, "A young girl was pulled off stage before her performance. No reason was given." The audience was confused. "I hope this isn't what it looks like." The post spread quickly, other parents commented. Some shared their own stories about how Mr. Thompson had acted unfairly toward their children. Others demanded answers. A former student wrote, "I'm not surprised. They always treated certain kids differently." The pressure started to build. A few days later, Maya was called to the counselor's office. Ms. Alvarez, the school counselor, was kind and soft-spoken. She offered Maya a seat and asked gently, "How are you feeling?" Maya looked at her for a moment and said, "I don't know." "It's okay," Ms. Alvarez replied. "I just want you to know that what happened wasn't right. And it's not your fault." Maya felt tears in her eyes but blinked them away. "There are people standing up for you," Ms. Alvarez added. "You're not alone." Time and days, Maya felt something warm in her chest. Not quite hope, but close to it. The school board sent out a message to all parents saying they would be conducting an internal review. They scheduled a special board meeting the following week and said they had invited a few parents and staff to speak about the incident. The message didn't mention Maya's name, but everyone knew what it was about. That weekend, Maya practiced her piano piece again. It's not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Her fingers moved across the keys slowly at first, then faster as her confidence returned. The music filled the room, gentle and powerful. Her brother sat in the corner, watching quietly. "You're really good," he said. Maya smiled, not because of the compliment, but because she was finally playing again. She still didn't know how the school board meeting would go or what would happen next, but she knew one thing: she hadn't done anything wrong, and that truth gave her strength. The night before the meeting, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her parents were nervous too, but they told her, "No matter what happens tomorrow, you did nothing to be ashamed of." Morning came. She put on the same lavender dress she had worn for the performance that never happened. She braided her hair and added the same butterfly clip. She looked in the mirror again, and this time she didn't smile, but she stood tall. She didn't know yet that the school board was going to surprise everyone, that while Maya was at home, that night playing the piano softly for herself, something powerful was going to happen inside the school auditorium. But for now, she held on to the one thing she still had, her music, and waited. The auditorium was quiet that evening. Not silent, but quiet in a way that felt heavy. People spoke in whispers, looked around curiously, and waited to see what would happen. Some parents held notepads, some teachers sat with crossed arms, and a few students were scattered in the back rows. Maya didn't come. Her parents had decided it would be better if she stayed home. They didn't want her to face more pain or discomfort, especially if the meeting didn't go well. But Maya wasn't far away. She sat in her room wearing headphones, her fingers gently dancing across the keyboard of her old piano. The same melody she had prepared for the talent show now floated through her window. She played it slowly, like each note was a word she couldn't say out loud. Her eyes were closed, but her mind was full of questions. What were they saying at the meeting? Would they finally listen? Would anyone speak the truth? Back at school, the board members were seated behind a long table at the front of the stage. There were 5 of them, 2 men and 3 women, each with stacks of paper in front of them. The principal, Mrs. Green, stood to the side, calm but alert. Mr. Thompson sat at the far end of the stage, arms folded, lips pressed together like he was trying not to show any emotion. The board chair. A tall man named Mr. Carter cleared his throat and spoke into the microphone. "Thank you all for being here tonight. We received several reports concerning an incident during the recent talent show. The board is here to listen, ask questions, and take appropriate steps to ensure fairness and transparency." The room fell silent. The first person to speak was Mr. Jenkins, the music teacher. He stood slowly and walked to the microphone. He looked nervous but determined. "I want to say clearly," he began, "that Maya Hernandez was on the official performance schedule. She was rehearsed, prepared, and confirmed. I was told about a scheduling issue only after she had already returned to the audience. It's not how we handle events like this. I've been teaching for 15 years, and I've never seen a student pulled off stage like that." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Maya is one of the most dedicated students I've worked with. This wasn't just a mistake. It felt wrong, and I believe it needs to be investigated fully." When he finished, a few people clapped quietly. Mr. Carter thanked him and nodded. Next, a parent came forward, Mrs. Patel. It's the same woman who had spoken to Maya after the show. She held a small notebook in her hand and adjusted her glasses before speaking. "I was sitting near the front during the show," she said. "I saw Maya walk toward the stage. Her name was called, and I saw Mr. Thompson pull her back. No announcement was made. No explanation was given. I've known Maya's family for years. They're hardworking people. That girl deserved to be heard." She closed her notebook and looked directly at the board. "We teach our children that they must work hard. follow rules, and show respect. But how do we explain when they're treated unfairly even after doing everything right? More people clapped now, not loudly but with more confidence. Then came a surprise. Ms. Reynolds, the quiet teacher who had once whispered support to Maya, in the hallway, stood up to speak. No one had asked her to come forward. She had decided on her own. "I was backstage during the show," she said. "I saw what happened." Maya was ready. She looked proud and excited. And then Mr. Thompson stopped her. He didn't consult anyone. He didn't explain. He just removed her. She took a breath, then added softly, "It didn't feel like a time issue. It felt personal." There was a murmur in the room. Few people shifted in their seats. Everyone knew what she meant, even if she didn't say it directly. Mr. Carter raised his head slightly. "Thank you, Ms. Reynolds," he said. Then, for the first time that evening, Mr. Thompson stood up. His face was stiff, his eyes cool. "I made a decision based on timing and safety," he said. "There were too many acts. The show was running. Late, I acted quickly. I regret that Maya was disappointed, but this has been blown out of proportion." He sat back down. There was silence again. But it was a cold silence this time. From the back row, a hand went up. It was a tall man with gray hair, Mr. Lewis, a longtime board member who rarely spoke unless he had something serious to say. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "according to the official schedule, Maya's performance was 5th. At that point in the evening, the show was exactly on time. Can you explain why she was the one removed, especially when the next performance took longer than hers would have?" Mr. Thompson looked surprised, then uncomfortable. He shifted in his chair. I didn't have the schedule in front of me at the time." "Then why did you choose her?" Mr. Lewis asked again. Calmly, Mr. Thompson didn't respond. That moment hung in the air like a storm cloud. The board exchanged glances. Mr. Carter leaned forward and said, "We'll be reviewing the recordings, schedules, and staff testimonies. In the meantime, we want to make something clear. Students should never be denied their moment without explanation, and certainly not without fairness." The meeting moved on to other matters, but the tension remained. When it ended, several parents gathered outside the auditorium to talk. Some were angry, some hopeful. But almost everyone agreed something had been exposed tonight, something that had been hidden too long. That night, Maya's father returned home and hugged his daughter tightly. Her mother sat beside her on the couch and said, "You weren't there, but your voice was heard." Maya looked up. "What did they say?" Her father smiled gently. "They asked the right questions, and Mr. Thompson didn't have the answers." Maya sat quietly for a moment, then turned to her keyboard. She played the same piece again, but this time it sounded different, stronger, braver, like each note was a promise. The next day, news about the meeting spread quickly through the school. Students who barely knew Maya came up to her and said things like, "I'm so glad they talked about it," or "You deserve better." Some teachers smiled at her in the hallway. Others gave small nods of quiet support, and then something even more surprising happened. The principal, Mrs. Green, called Maya to her office. When Maya walked in, she saw a piano keyboard in the corner of the room, not her usual one. A real one, bigger, newer. Mrs. Green smiled gently. "I wanted to tell you this in person," she said. "The school board has decided that what happened to you was wrong. They're continuing the investigation, and for now, Mr. Thompson has been placed on temporary leave." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "In the meantime," Mrs. Green continued, "we've planned something. Next Friday, there's going to be a small school assembly. We'd like you to perform your piece. Only if you want to." Maya's mouth opened slightly in surprise. For a few seconds, she couldn't speak. "Do I have to talk?" she asked quietly. Mrs. Green shook her head. "No speeches, just your music." Maya smiled for the first time in days. That week, she practiced every day. Her nerves were still there, but they didn't hold her back. Her parents helped her rehearse. Her brother cheered for her after each practice. Even her neighbors sent her notes of support. The school had unintentionally turned Maya into a symbol of quiet courage, of standing up without shouting, of using music to speak when words didn't work. On Friday morning, the gym was filled again, not with decorations or loud music this time, with something softer. Respect, curiosity, a desire to make things right. The lights dimmed. Maya walked out, slowly, wearing her lavender dress again. She took her place at the piano, took a deep breath, and placed her fingers on the keys. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't need to. She had everything she needed in front of Hertha, piano, the music, and the chance to be heard. And then she began to play. The gym was packed, but you could hear a pin drop. Everyone sat quietly in their seats, waiting. Some students leaned forward, some teachers folded their hands on their laps, and a few parents sat with phones ready to record. On the stage, under the soft white lights, Maya Hernandez sat at the piano. Her small hands rested on the keys, still and calm. Her lavender dress flowed gently over the bench, and her butterfly hair clips sparkled under the lights. She didn't look nervous. She looked ready. Maya closed her eyes for just one moment. She wasn't thinking about the crowd. She wasn't thinking about Mr. Thompson or the unfair moment when she was pulled off the stage. She was thinking about her grandmother, the woman who had taught her this song, who had loved music so deeply, and who had once whispered, "Even when the world won't listen, your music will still speak." Then she began to play. The notes started slowly, gently, like a breeze floating across a quiet lake. Her fingers moved like they were dancing, and her body swayed just slightly with each phrase. The sound filled the gym not just with music, but with feeling. The kind of feeling that makes your chest heavy and your eyes water, even if you don't understand why. People forgot where they were. Some closed their eyes. Others stared at her fingers in amazement. One teacher, Ms. Reynolds, quietly wiped away a tear. She had seen many performances during her time in school, but this one was different. This wasn't just a student playing a piano. This was something deeper. It was the sound of strength without anger, pain without bitterness. 8. Was Maya telling her story without saying a single word. 5 minutes passed, then 6. The final notes floated softly into silence, as if the music itself didn't want to leave the room. And for a few seconds after Maya finished, nobody moved. Nobody clapped. They just sat there, quiet and still, caught in the beauty of what had just happened. Then the applause came. It started small, just a few claps, but then grew and grew until the gym was filled with sound. Everyone stood up. Students, teachers, board members, even the janitor in the back, all on their feet, clapping with full hearts. It wasn't just a standing ovation. It was an apology. Thank you. A promise. Maya stood slowly and smiled. It wasn't a wide, excited smile. It was soft, like the music she'd just played. She bowed gently, then walked off the stage with her head high. Her parents were waiting for her near the side door. Her mother pulled her into a hug so tight that Maya could barely breathe, and her father placed his hand on her shoulder, eyes full of pride. "You did it," he whispered. "I finally got to play," Maya replied. As the crowd slowly left the gym, people came up to her. Some shook her hand, some told her how beautiful the music was. One boy, who rarely spoke to anyone, said, "I don't like piano music, but I liked yours." Maya laughed, surprised, and said, "Thanks." Even Mrs. Green, the principal, walked over and said, "That was incredible. Maya, thank you for sharing your gift with us." And then something completely unexpected happened. One of the board members, Mrs. Watkins, a serious woman with silver glasses and a quiet voice, stepped up beside Maya and said, "We'd like to talk to your parents after school today. Just a short conversation." Maya looked up at her parents, unsure. "We'll be there," her mother said with a polite nod. Later that afternoon, they all sat together in a small conference room near the main office. Maya, her parents, and 2 board members sat across from each other at a wooden table. Mrs. Watkins began. "Maya, you may not know this, but your performance today reached more than just the people in the gym. Word about what happened to you has spread outside the school. There's been a lot of discussion in the community. Teachers have spoken up. Former students have shared their own experiences. What you've gone through has opened many eyes." Maya listened quietly. "We want you to know," the other board member continued, "that we believe you. We believe What happened to you was wrong, and we're taking steps to make sure it doesn't happen again to you or to any other student. Her father asked. What kind of steps? There's going to be a full review of staff behavior, especially during school events, Mrs. Watkins said. We're revisiting our training on fairness, inclusion, and decision-making. But that's not all. We'll also want to hear from Maya herself. Me? Asked, surprised. We'd like to start a new student leadership group, students who help guide school policies, event planning, and communication between staff and students. We want you to be part of that group. Maya blinked. You want me? To help change the school? Mrs. Watkins smiled gently. Yes, if you're willing. Maya looked at her parents. Her mother nodded. Her father gave a small smile. I'll do it, Maya said, her voice quiet but steady. The meeting ended with warm handshakes and soft promises. Maya walked out of the room feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Not just for herself, but for other students like her. Students who stayed quiet, who followed every rule, who smiled even when they were hurting. Maybe now things would be a little better for them too. Over the next few weeks, the changes became real. Mr. Thompson was officially removed from his position. The announcement was made by the school board and confirmed by Mrs. Green during a morning assembly. It wasn't loud or dramatic. They didn't name Maya, but everyone knew. Some students cheered quietly, others whispered finally, knew. Vice principal was hired Ms. Carter, a young, kind woman with a calm voice and a sharp mind. She visited each classroom during her first week and made a promise to all students. Your voice matters. No one will ever be pushed aside again. Maya joined the new student leadership group. At first, she didn't know what to say in meetings, but the other students listened when she did speak, and slowly she began to share more. She talked about how students were treated differently based on how they looked, how they spoke, or who they were. She helped plan better communication between staff and students. And she suggested that every school event should include a student review panel too. Make sure everyone gets a fair chance. Her ideas were taken seriously. Teachers began changing how they managed performances. They asked for student feedback. They checked and double-checked event lists. And Maya's story was now used as an example in training workshops, not to embarrass her, but to remind everyone what could happen when someone is silenced unfairly. One afternoon, Maya stood in the hallway near the music room when a younger girl came up to her. She was maybe 9 or 10 years old, holding a violin case. Are you Maya? She asked shyly. Yes, Maya replied with a smile. My brother told me what happened to you, the girl said. I was scared to audition for the music show. But he said if you could be brave, then I can be brave too. Maya knelt down a little so she was eye level with the girl. You should do it. The stage belongs to you too. The girl nodded and walked away, her violin case swinging by her side. Maya stood there for a moment, thinking about how something unfair had hurt her so badly, but also how it had led to something stronger. She hadn't chosen this path. Hadn't wanted to become a symbol or a voice. She had only wanted to play music. Sometimes the smallest sound can lead to the biggest change. That evening, Maya sat at home with her family. They were eating dinner together, laughing about something her little brother had said. For the first time in a long time, the room felt light. Not just because things were better now, but because Maya had taken back something that had been stolen from her. Her moment, her pride, her voice, and she knew now, more than ever, that when someone tries to pull you off the stage, you fight. Not with anger or noise, but with truth, courage, and the power of being fully, completely, and beautifully yourself. A few months passed after the performance in the gym, and things at school had slowly changed. Not overnight, and not in every corner, but piece by piece. The hallways didn't feel as heavy. Teachers smiled more. Students walked with a little more confidence. Something had shifted, not just in how the school looked, but in how it felt. And it all started with a girl who had once been pulled off the stage without a reason, Maya. Hernandez still played the piano every day. Her fingers were stronger now. Her hands moved with purpose, not just skill. Each note she played came from her heart. She still used the same old keyboard at home, though sometimes it crackled or missed a sound. Her parents had promised to save up for a new one, but Maya never asked. She didn't play for the perfect sound. She played because it made her feel alive. She became known across the school, not as the girl who was stopped, but as the girl who didn't stop. That was different. It meant something more. One afternoon, Maya was called to the music room. She walked in and saw Mr. Jenkins, her music teacher, standing beside a large object covered with a cloth. He had a big smile on his face. "We've been waiting for the right moment," he said, "and I think today is that moment." He pulled off the cloth, and underneath was a beautiful upright piano. It wasn't brand new, but it was real. It's buoyed, polished, shining in the sunlight that came through the classroom windows. Maya stared, in shock. This was donated to the school by a community group, Mr. Jenkins explained. "They heard your story. They said every school needs a real piano and every school needs a Maya." Maya laughed, a little embarrassed. "That's too much." "No," he said gently. "That's exactly right." He motioned for her to sit. Maya walked to the bench slowly and placed her fingers on the keys. She played a few notes. The sound was deeper, richer than her old keyboard at home. She smiled wider than she had in weeks. That moment wasn't about the piano. It was about being seen, being appreciated, being valued not just as a musician or a student, but as a human being. After that day, Maya was invited to speak at different school events. At first, she didn't want to. She didn't like public speaking, and she didn't want to relive the pain. But eventually, she agreed in one condition. She wouldn't talk about being a victim. She would only talk about rising after being pushed down at one event. She stood in front of the 7th and 8th grade students in the auditorium. She held a small piece of paper but didn't read from it much. "I didn't ask to be part of a big story," she said. "I just wanted to play a song. But when that moment was taken away from me, I realized something. If I stayed silent, maybe it would happen to someone else. Maybe next time, it wouldn't be music. Maybe it would be a science fair, or a debate, or a basketball tryout. We don't always get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose what we do next." The room was completely silent. "I decided," she said softly, "that even if one person tries to stop me, I'll keep going. Not because I want to fight, but because I want to grow. I want everyone here to know you're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to speak. You're allowed to dream." She looked up and smiled. "And if you ever feel like someone's trying to pull you off your stage, whatever that stage is, just remember, that stage belongs to you too." Students clapped, some even cheered. Maya walked off the stage, heart pounding, but full of something warm. She didn't feel small anymore. Things outside school changed too. The story of Maya's experience had quietly spread to local newspapers and community groups. A journalist wrote a short article titled, "One Note at a Time: How a Girl and a Piano Changed a School." The article didn't name Mr. Thompson, but it told Maya's story honestly. The story talked about justice, about silence, about music, and about a young girl who refused to be invisible one day. Maya and her parents were invited to a small event hosted by a local art and music foundation. They didn't know why at first. They assumed it was just a music recital. But when they arrived, Maya saw a banner that said, "Honoring the courage of young artists." Her name was on the list. They gave her a certificate, a bouquet of fresh flowers, and a quiet round of applause. It wasn't a huge award. There were no lights, no cameras. But it meant something. It meant the world had seen her, and the world had listened. That summer, Maya received a letter in the mail. It was from a summer music program in the city, a scholarship offer for a month-long workshop. She didn't even know she had been nominated, but her teacher had sent in a video of her performance at the school gym. When she opened the letter, she couldn't believe her eyes. "They want me to come." She asked her mom, shocked. Her mom nodded, beaming. "They don't just want you, they chose you." That summer became one of the most beautiful times in Maya's life. She met other students who loved music. She played in groups, attended workshops, and even performed in a small city concert. For the first time, she played on a grand piano, a real one. its perfect sound and polished ivory keys. But no matter how big the stage got, Maya never forgot where it started. Not with applause, not with awards, but with being pushed down. And choosing to stand back up when the school year began again, Maya returned not just as a student, but as a leader. The student leadership group she had joined earlier was now bigger. More students had joined, some shy, some bold, some who had their own quiet battles to fight. Maya helped lead meetings. She listened. She suggested. She helped students plan. Events where everyone got a chance to shine, whether they were dancers, or speakers, And every time someone new stepped onto a stage, Maya smiled from the side, knowing what it felt like to almost lose that chance. One day, near the end of the school year, Maya was walking past the gym when she heard someone playing piano. As she peeked in and saw a younger student practicing, the girl looked nervous and was struggling with a part of her song. Maya walked over quietly and said, "Want some help?" The girl looked up wide-eyed. "You're Maya, right?" Maya nodded. "I've had some practice with nerves." They laughed, and Maya sat beside her. She didn't touch the keys. She just listened, encouraged, and offered little tips. After 10 minutes, the girl played her piece from start to finish, almost perfectly. "See?" Maya said. "You've got it." The girl smiled and said, "Thanks for not giving up. If you did, I don't think I'd be here." Maya didn't say anything. She just smiled back, stood up, and walked out of the gym. The sunlight was warm on her face. The wind moved gently through the trees. And for a moment, everything felt still and full. She had once been a quiet girl with a quiet song and a big dream. Now, she was a quiet girl with a strong voice and a bigger heart. Her song had been interrupted, but it hadn't been silenced. It had simply found a better ending.